Nietzsche's Will to Power, Part 1. Friedrich Nietzsche's notebook collection from 1883 to 1888 is titled The Will to Power. In it he presents his ideas about how his doctrine of the will to power is displayed and works through societies in general and through individuals in particular. To begin with, Nietzsche presupposes that human beings ineluctably and incessantly inflict their wills on each other. Most all of our behaviors toward each other and with each other are motivated by the desire to control in some way or another, the desire to control each other. We are all exclusively egoistic, he says, by nature. Whether we are expressing our love for another, whether we are giving gifts to each other, whether we are expressing gratitude to each other or with one another, or physically harming others, we act out of an egoistic stance, out of an egoistic attitude. There is no such thing as natural or true altruism. And this is pretty much confirmed by contemporary research in science, in cognitive psychology specifically, as well as in neurocognitive, social cognitive neuroscience. Well, why be altruistic? After all, a person can gain so much by simply being self-serving and greedy that it's difficult to figure how helpful persons could ever have evolved. Any time and energy spent helping others' genes take away from one's own. Many different reasons have been formulated to explain the presence of altruism in the evolutionary scheme of things. For instance, helping your relatives would obviously preserve the same genes that occur in you. Sexual selection probably also plays a role. The neurological apparatus that allowed us to develop a conscience probably played some role. The common sense reasoning involved in knowing that someone will probably help you later if you help her now seems to be an important factor. And of course, the emergence and development of religious and ethical philosophies which promote altruistic behavior seem to play a major role, or so it is assumed. But there is another reason why altruism may have arisen biologically. Altruism may be related to a strange, semi-kind, semi-vindictive strategy known as reciprocal altruism. This strategy alternately cajoles and browbeats persons into forming a win-win or a zero-sum way of working together. Reciprocal altruism has been validated in a competition involving the game of Prisoner's Dilemma. In Prisoner's Dilemma, two suspects are jailed separately and given a choice as to whether or not to squeal on their partners. If one partner gives in to the temptation, the partner goes free. The other, the sucker, is left with an extended jail sentence. If neither partner squeals, however, both serve short jail sentences, and then both are set free. Obviously, the best mutual strategy is to both stay silent and to take the reduced jail time. But a misjudgment of the partner's loyalty, can prove devastating. So what's a prisoner to do? In this competition, game theorists, psychologists, scientists of various ilk, philosophers, game players, and the general public were invited to submit strategies for winning a version of Prisoner's Dilemma. The most consistent winning strategy turned out to be the simplest strategy. It was called tit for tat, later renamed reciprocal altruism. Tit for tat starts out with the first move of cooperation. Always start out with cooperation. Then after the other player makes a move, the strategy involves mimicking that move. If the other player defects, defection then is in order for the other player. If the other player remains loyal, then both players stay loyal. Most importantly, tit for tat shows that nice persons with a willingness to retaliate when necessary can finish first. The mechanism that reinforces this strategy is becoming apparent in medical imaging related to our ability to form moral judgments. It turns out that if we intentionally violate a social norm, our amygdala, the emotional processor deep in the limbic system of our brains, becomes activated. If we accidentally transgress a social norm, however, our amygdala does not activate. It is believed that the amygdala activation occurs as part of a punishment system that is a consequence of one's own bad moral behavior. The expectations or one's own assumed bad moral behavior. The expectation of a reward, on the other hand, is thought to bring positive feedback through the brain's natural reward system. It is easy to see how variations in these systems can be genetically based and thus subject to natural selection. You can easily imagine variants for tit for tat that involve deceit. Persons who signal they will remain cooperative, but who then defect. Such cheaters often have fine-tuned abilities to hide their intentions, almost as if they were bred with these abilities. Indeed, a number of researchers have posited that the presence of cheaters among human populations has led to a sort of evolutionary arms race over time in which potential cooperators evolve fine-tuned sensitivities to likely evidence of cues of deception, while potential cheaters evolve equally fine-tuned abilities to hide those cues. The discovery of tit for tat, reciprocal altruism in other words, sparked a great deal of additional research. One researcher concluded that emotions such as those involved in kindness and retaliation strategies are specialized modes of operation shaped by natural selection to adjust the psychological, physiological, and behavioral parameters of the organism in ways that increase its capacity and tendency to respond to threats and opportunities characteristic of specific kinds of situations. Basically, what is being said is that emotions can internally reward, punish, or motivate an individual to either perform or not perform certain types of social interactions and also communicate one's intentions to others.